Hello there everybody and welcome to another video. My name is Nicolett Electra. Hello there, how are you? Hope you guys have all been doing pretty well this week. This week I wanted to jump right back into the photography space and talk to you guys about a few different things that I like to look for when I'm doing photo shoots outside. Typically when I do photo shoots outside, there's a lot of factors that I like to put into place when I am picking my locations for my subjects or for my props or for my products, whatever it is that I might be shooting. And so today I wanted to give you guys my few things that I like to look for before I solidify on a location or a backdrop. So if this is something that interests you, please keep watching. So the first thing that I like to put into consideration whenever I am shooting a subject is lighting. Lighting is number one, absolutely, every day, anytime, whatever. Whenever I am shooting, I typically like to shoot either in the mornings or in the evenings, golden hour. You hear it all the time. The reason why I like to shoot in either one of those time frames is because the light tends to be a bit more diffused and sometimes can give a golden glare to either skin tones or products. When the sun is at high noon or the highest that it can be, it tends to bring the light straight down and does cause some shadow play under the eyes, and sometimes it's just incredibly harsh. Other days that I also like to shoot are days that it's overcast or gray. Honestly, it is the perfect day to shoot in that sort of lighting. But again, it's up to preference and up to you and your feelings. But whenever I like to shoot in those certain times of days, and I like to put all those things into account whenever I'm finding a backdrop to shoot at. Number two is textures and patterns. Whenever I'm finding a location, I like to take textures and patterns into consideration. Here is one of the examples of a pattern or texture that I absolutely loved. It is a senior portrait actually for a friend of mine called Jewel. He wanted something fun, something in the city. He was going into film at the time. And so we said, okay, let's walk around the city and see what we can find. And we found this mosaic blue wall. And we had him sit in a chair and we were cracking jokes and he laughed, and it was just my favorite image. And even looking back at it now, this is a photograph from years ago, I still get such a fun vibe from him. He has very simple clothes on, nothing with crazy colors on it, and so this pattern in mosaic really helped him pop in the background, and I really loved this image. Another example of patterns as well is this photograph of a watch that I took. It has clearly a pattern behind. It looks kind of like a rugged chain link fence thing. I don't know how to describe it, but it was a very cool design that I came across, and putting the watch being round on top of those round mosaic patterns that were right behind it really gave it this industrial feel, and it gave it just a feel that honestly the client ended up loving, which was great. So finding patterns and finding textures really helps enhance an image and make it feel a little bit better. Even if you're photographing against like a green flowery wall, or if you're photographing against cement, something of that sort, it helps provide an extra layer to your photographs. So just something to think about when you are finding their locations. The next thing that I like to put into consideration is color. So color is something that is a bit more long-winded. It's not as simple as like, oh yeah, I want to shoot on a yellow wall. Dope. No, with color, if you're photographing either people or you're photographing a product, color is something that is very important when you're photographing. Definitely top three. So for example, if you're shooting somebody with a patterned shirt, you're not going to want to put them on a highly patterned wall or something that is a crazy color per se that maybe doesn't match the shirt or the vibe. So someone who might be wearing a patterned shirt, you might want to put them on a plain wall or something that doesn't have that much pizzazz into it and doesn't call as much attention. When you're thinking about color and when you're looking through locations, you want to find something that complements, not detracts from the subject. That makes sense. And I will include a few images that I have taken over the years that I feel like combined coloring really well. I've had a few instances, one recently where I photographed a client who was wearing a really dope shirt, and it looked like a newspaper, and we went to go photograph him on a aluminum wall. And as soon as I went to go photograph the client on the aluminum wall, I said, this is not it, there's too much going on. So color is something that you have to take into account of what they're wearing, what the person is wearing, what the products might look like, and from there you can dissect what tones you want to go with, and then kind of go forward with what kind of textures you may want, etc. So I would say those are my top 3 things that I like to look for. I like to look for lighting, I like to look for textures and patterns, and I like to dissect the color of the products that I am shooting or the client is wearing. Those 3 things are probably my top 3 things that I like to look for when I'm finding locations to shoot with. But there are a few things that are also worth kind of taking a look at and taking into consideration when you are photographing your subjects. One thing is leading lines. I really love leading lines, and I love using line work in my photos. I feel like it gives it a sense of interest, and it helps direct the eye to whatever it is that you are trying to direct your eye to. So these are a few examples that I did photograph over the years that I thought did a pretty decent job of leading lines. The first one is my good friend Poncho P at the swing set. I absolutely love this photograph, and this is a photograph that I took so many years ago, but I still look at it and admire it so much. And he's sitting there and he's just holding the bars with his face in the bar, and the way that he's positioned on the side of the frame, and then you see more of the swing sets and all that stuff in the back. Those lines help frame him and help him feel like he is in a complete space, and then you see everything in the back, and it just all together, I feel like the line work was done pretty well. The next example that I have is an example with my good friend Rome as well. Rome was just hanging out. It was like a little parking garage sort of thing, and he was kind of right there on the corner of the parking garage. And it just, the way that the lines came into the photograph, they really directed your eye straight to Rome. And looking that it's a concrete sort of a texture in the background, and then seeing that he is wearing the tones that he is wearing as well, it really helped kind of bring the image together, and the lines really helped feel you and direct you in that space. And then the last thing is layers. Layers is something that I started taking into consideration, fortunately, early on. Once I started doing studio work, I started to see that certain layering really helped complete an image, and I kind of took that and moved forward with it and started doing more and more photography with layering being put into account. Especially doing wedding work, this was also a big hack that we used to use. But what I mean by layering is shooting a subject with something in front of it as well as something possibly behind it. So one example that I have is a photograph of a friend of mine named Bree. I shot her through the flowers, and you can see her just hanging out, chilling right there behind it, and then there's more flowers behind her. I feel like if those flowers that were in front of her were not there, the photo wouldn't be as interesting. But the idea of us peeking through the flowers to see her kind of gave it a little bit more interest. So whenever I do pick certain locations, I like to think of different things that are in the foreground and things that are in the background, and where I can place my subject to kind of give it a little extra layer of dimension. Overall though, those are my top 5 things that I like to really think about whenever I am photographing either clients or products. Those are things that really I take into account with every single photo shoot that I do, and I think that, you know, if you try to implement at least one of them in your next shoot, this should be able to help you a little bit and give you a sense of direction whenever you are photographing. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys find these little tips and tricks helpful, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys so much, and best of luck out there. See y'all.